Sevinj Fataliyeva, welcome to the virtual media box. Your report concerns the problems of autism and the need to recognize it and do more to help people. What exactly would you like to see happening?
Actually, the highlights of the findings during our work on the report are those that the first one is, of course, we found out that autism is not a disorder. It is a disability and it's a difference, but we cannot call it disorder at all. Its manifestation vary greatly in terms of combination and levels of severity of symptoms. And it's important to understand that the neurological differences can involve areas of strength as well as weakness. Also, during our report, we found out that our work, we found out that research suggests that only 20–30% of autistic individuals also suffer from co-occurring intellectual disability or language delay. In other words, many widespread stereotypes about people with autism actually do not fit the reality of the majority of people with autism. And my own understanding of autism has evolved a lot. That's the main goal, I think the main achievement of myself, because when I was starting working on this report, of course, I wasn't that aware of the details and of the peculiarities of these people. And I think that other people's understanding of autism also needs to be evolved. And we have turned to the National Autistic Society in the UK, the report which was published in 2015 that suggests that 99.5% of people have heard of autism, but just 16% of autistic people and their families feel the public understands what it means to be autistic. And this is the cruel of the matter. We cannot properly support people with autism and their families if the general public doesn't understand autism. And more importantly, if the professionals people with autism come into contact with do not understand autism. Misunderstanding, this is the key word of this problem. This is misunderstanding autism can lead to misassessing the needs of people with autism. It can stand in the way of access to education, healthcare, social services, or benefits. It can be it can be a barrier for a job. It can lead to unwarranted arrests, pretrial detention, or even prison time, and it can lead unnecessary and involuntary psychiatric placement and treatment.
Because a lot of people don't even recognize autism when they meet it, and some people with autism have gone on to be the whole very important positions. Paul Dirac, the physicist, for instance, was was it Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge, and he was the man who discovered mathematically the existence of antiparticles, and yet he was autistic, and most people just thought he was very quiet and didn't get on well with people. It's a hard thing to spot, isn't it?
The key problem, as I said, is misunderstanding and some stereotyping of this issue. Actually, there is a strong stereotype. It doesn't matter which state we're talking about. I think that the situation is the same all over the world when stereotypes are still existing because of the misunderstanding and lack of information. And in our report, we refer to different researchers, and what we find out also due to our fact-finding visit to the UK in September this year, we found out the following. It's often very hard for people with autism and their families to access the services they need in timely manner. This is, I think, one of the most important issues that we have to highlight in our report. Long wait times are commonly reported for autism diagnostic services. These are particularly essential since only autism diagnostic will open up access to the other services. The service with the most unsuccessful access attempts at the last 2 years in the UK were housing, employment, therapy services. Also, another problem is mental health services, which were also very difficult to access. And the most often reported barriers to access were reported as the services not being suitable or the person seeking is not being deemed eligible for the service. Another problematic issue is the most frequently reported suggestions for improvements involved improving resources, resources specifically including findings, but also improving autism-related training. And of course, this data confirms what we know from our previous researches and with other researchers. And we urgently need to make the world more autistic friendly. I think this is the motto of the report, to make the world autism friendly, so that people with autism and their families can access their rights and be properly supported.
But I suppose autism itself varies, doesn't it? There are people with mild autism. People are said to be on the spectrum. And there are people with very severe autism. It must be very disabling. And knowing how to deal with them, how to help them is a problem, isn't it?
Actually, it's not that problem, and this is not that hard that as it could sound. And I think that our report is full of good practice and good examples from all over the Europe, because we, in the beginning of our work, we have spread the questionnaire to the member states, trying to find out what is the best experience in this. And of course, collecting information was very useful. We just need to apply this collective wisdom. This means we need to adopt specific legislation on autism, as well as national autism strategies and actions plan, and regularly review and adjust them. Also, it is necessary to involve all stakeholders in policy development, review and implementation, including and especially people with autism and their family, because if we would get information from the people from the first hand, of course, it would be very difficult to work out some strategies or some policies and to make the situation better. And also, it's necessary to stamp out stigma, negative stereotyping, as I said, and discrimination against people with autism and their families is also very important.
Sevinj Fataliyeva, thank you very much indeed.